Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is John Ferrara. I really appreciate all of you taking your precious time to join us today. I think that we need to invest in ourselves, in learning how to be better, smarter, faster, not just in our business part of our persona, but our personal side as well. Today, we're talking about business. We're talking about how to use a funnel to grow your business faster. And who better to do that with than Liz Heiman? Liz, say hello to our audience.
Hi, everybody.
So, Liz, what I love about you is that you and your sister Alice are really focused on helping small and medium-sized businesses develop strategies that drive growth. You do that by delivering and targeting their value and brand positioning. You enable CEOs and the business teams and sales leaders to do the basics, establish goals and programs that ultimately increase revenue. And you love startups, you love fast growing mid-market companies, and you do that by supporting their sales strategies, their sales management skills, and help sales organizations sustain real growth. And that's why we asked you to join us here today to talk about what seems pretty basic, right? Pipeline. And so, Liz, I really appreciate you joining us today.
Thanks for having
And
me.
for those that don't know me, my name is John Ferrara. I'm the CEO of Nimble. Before starting Nimble, I helped pioneer contact management and CRM before Outlook or Salesforce existed. Back then, there was Outlook Express and spreadsheets and day timers. And so I founded a company called Goldmine and ran that for 10 years, sold it when I was 40, raised three kids for 10 years and got back in the business because I think that that sales is really a service. And to do that service effectively, you need to build relationships. And that most CRMs aren't about relationships, they're about reporting. And that's why I think people loved their contact tools like Act and Goldmine. And so we built Nimble to be focused on relationships and contacts, but still have the basics of CRM that allows you to do what you need to do. So let's talk about the agenda, Liz. Take us through it.
Okay, well, it's funny because you started and you said that the funnel is something really basic, but actually it can be a little tough to understand. So what I'm going to start with is why you need a funnel, why it's a critical part of executing both business strategy and sales strategy. We're going to talk about the stages and how to define them and the expected activities for each stage. We're going to talk about how to define funnel ratios. I know that's exciting, sales math, and how and why to perform monthly funnel reviews with, and how to accurately forecast, adjust, prioritize to hit your goals. So that's kind of what we're going to cover today, and probably a lot more.
Liz, before we get started with your presentation, I just want to remind everybody that we learn when we ask questions and we learn from other people's questions. So one of the reasons we asked you to put your location in the question box is so that you know where to put your questions. So please, 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 please ask questions. We'll compile them and answer them at the end. Thanks, Liz.
Okay. Are you ready to start then?
Let's go.
All right. So let's talk about how to use your funnel to grow your business. So I really believe that sales is not a mystery. And what I want to do is start demystifying sales by talking to you about your funnel, how to manage it, and how that impacts the growth of your business. Your funnel is a critical part of executing both your business and your sales strategy. So once you establish your goals, the funnel is the tool that tells you whether or not you're on track to hit those numbers and what it will take to get you back on track if you're not. So we're going to talk about those things. So what is a sales funnel? I don't know, you maybe have heard the word pipeline more often than funnel. John, is that what you hear? Is people talking about a pipeline rather than a funnel?
Yes, I think people call it deals. They call it pipeline. They call it funnel. Did you know that the sales funnel was invented by the French in the 1800s? And And I'll actually argue that the idea of a funnel may have been radically changing, and I'll talk a little bit about that at the end. But I think that most people call it their sales pipeline or their funnel.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about the funnel, and as I just said, it's often referred to as a pipeline, but it's the mechanism that you use to manage sales opportunities or deals. So the funnel is typically broken down into stages, ideally 5 to 7 stages, and includes important information like the name of the company, the product being sold, the value of the product, and the close date. And in a perfect world, it would also include next actions and next action dates. And I'll show you what that looks like in just a few minutes. So why do you need a funnel? Well, when you use your funnel properly, it's a powerful tool for salespeople, managers, and company leaders. So the funnel allows salespeople to see what's going on in their world, to see what they need to do next, and to prioritize their activities so that they reach their goals. For sales leadership, it allows us to look far into the future and understand what we can expect to come down the line later on, and to identify when we have a problem coming long before it actually happens. So the leadership and the coaches can turn things around and help salespeople better manage and prioritize opportunities to hit their goals. So that's why we need a funnel, because it's a really powerful tool for running our business when we use it properly. And then we were just talking about funnel versus pipeline. I use the word funnel because what we know is that what goes in the top of a funnel does not always come out the bottom, right? So you have prospects, and every single thing that you prospect does not close. So what's at the top of the funnel, it might take 10 opportunities for every closed deal. And so I like to think about a funnel rather than a pipeline, because when I think of pipeline, I think of like a faucet. Like you can turn it on and stuff starts flowing, and then you can turn it off and it stops. And what we know is that that is not the way that sales works. So what we know is that all leads do not move through the funnel at the same speed, and that things fall out of the funnel as you're moving through. And so I really prefer to use the word funnel, because in actuality, our funnel looks more like this, right? A funnel is all about ratios, and I'm going to talk about those ratios in sales math later on. But the shape matters. So it's large at the top because we all know we have to put a lot of leads into the top to get a few deals out the bottom. And when I look at it that way, I understand that my sales funnel should always have exponentially more opportunities in the top than in the lower section. So if I think about it as a funnel rather than a pipeline, I remember that I need to know my ratios. So it helps me conceptualize where I am and how I'm going to hit my goals. So it doesn't really matter whether you call it a pipeline or a funnel or a deal track or whatever you call it, as long as you understand this concept, because this concept will help you be successful and will help you manage your leads. So John, are you with me there on the shape of the funnel?
Yeah, you definitely have to have a wider top, and because it takes, it's a X to Y ratio, and so 100%.
All right, so I'm going to refer to it as a funnel. If you refer to it as a pipeline, that's okay. So let's talk. Whoops, I jumped ahead of myself and then back. Hang on. Oh, runaway slides. So let's talk about what the stages of the funnel are. So I explained to you before that we typically have 5 to 7 stages. The stages that I typically use are prospect, qualify. I either use verify or cultivate, close, and won or lost. And really, I know it's hard to believe, but that's all you really need in order to make your funnel work properly. So the stages of your funnel and the activities in them are determined by your sales process, which we're going to talk about in just a minute. So if you don't have a well-defined sales process, then your funnel gets really messy and it's hard to know what all those stages should be. So we're going to talk about that so that you understand what a sales process is and how we use it to match up with our funnel. So we only need 5 to 6 stages, and we put the activities inside those stages. And John, maybe later on you can help us understand using Nimble how we would do that. Things like competitive position and status of the sale, they're all important, but they are not stages. So keep your funnel simple and keep track of activities and status all in a different place. So before we get too far, let's take a second and look at what a sales process might look like. And I can share this with you folks if you'd like afterwards. So this is sort of my generic sales process example. So at the top here, I have targeting, and that really happens before prospecting. It really happens in the marketing side. So then I have prospecting, which is reaching out to identify targets and their interest, qualifying, verifying or cultivating, closing, and closed. And notice I have an ing, and we're going to talk about that in a second. So if I think about my sales process, right, if I think about prospecting, during prospecting, the activities that are going to happen are we're going to gather information, we're going to create appropriate messaging, we're going to call, email, connect, or visit. Those are activities, and we can mark those as completed. And then we're going to have a series of questions that are unique to your sales process, but they're going to sound something like, is there anything going on with this company that would make it a good time to purchase? So I'm not necessarily asking the customer, but I might be asking myself. I might be looking on Google for answers to this, or I might be talking to somebody else who's giving me information. So these are the kinds of questions that I would ask myself or someone else during the prospecting stage. And you could go through the entire process and look at the activities and the questions that need to be asked at the different stages. So John, does that make sense to you?
It does. We have a couple questions, and I think that sometimes you wait till the end, but I think if people are asking questions in a particular area, I think it's great to sort of like feed them the things there.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, ask away.
And one of them is, what limit of days would you have for each stage?
So that really depends upon your particular sales process. And this is the part about defining your own. So when you start thinking about how long is your sales process realistically? So for some companies, their sales process can be 6 months or a year long. In fact, I'm working with a company whose sales process is sometimes 2 years long. Other people, you can get from prospecting all the way to close in a couple of weeks. So you would have to figure that based on how long it will take for you or your salespeople to get through the activities that need to happen, and how long it will take for your customer to get through the activities that they need to get through in order to make their buying decision.
And I would agree with you there, Liz. I think what happens is it sort of sorts itself out. Like if you're using software, the software should be able to tell you how many days things are in each stage and the total amount of time for on average. And then you could ideally compare that to between reps. So you could go ahead and see, what the average is and who's sort of accelerating and who's sort of sliding behind. But I think if you simplify it, if the product is less expensive and the companies you're selling to are smaller, the cycle is shorter. And if the products are more expensive and complex and the companies you're selling to are larger, it's longer, basically.
Yeah, and what I would also say is that when we begin to use our funnel accurately and consistently, and everybody in our team is using it the same way, and I'm going to talk about this later on, these things will become very clear. What should the sales cycle look like? So you may not have the answers to that yet. So you might have to guess, but over the next 6 months or a year, you will know the answers to those if you continually and consistently use your funnel.
And then Liz, the other question was, what's the difference between stage and gate?
That's interesting. So a gate is going to be more like it's going to be more like velocity, I believe, the way that you're talking about it. So a stage is we break down the sales process and the buying process into certain pieces. Now, a depending on whether you're talking about gate, G-A-T-E, or gate, G-A-I-T, which I'm not sure.
Well, did you
So
say gate? Because I didn't hear gate.
what did he say?
The difference between a stage and a gate. So did you say gate? I didn't hear that.
Yeah, I never use that word.
Okay, then let's just move on. And Gunders,
Oh, okay.
if you have if you can clarify that, let us know.
Yeah. Okay. That would be helpful because
Okay.
yeah, I'm kind of guessing what he's meaning by that.
Yeah.
So what we really want to do is work out the details of our sales process, because before we put it into our funnel, and definitely before we put it into our CRM, we want this right. And we want to be sure all the definitions are clear and everybody's using it the same way. So, like I said, I can send this out to you guys, and you can make your own process based on that.
Just so
So,
everybody knows, we're going to send a recording and a copy of the deck to everybody who registered.
okay, great. Okay, so this may seem silly to just have the word ing, but I want to be really clear here that in each stage of your sales process or your sales funnel, you're in the process of doing something. So one of the mistakes that people make is that they start thinking about past tense. If I'm in qualify, if I call it qualify, I'm actually in the process of qualifying that lead. So we want to be sure that we remember that as we're defining our sales process and helping our salespeople move through it. So we're prospecting, we're qualifying, we're cultivating, we're closing, and then it's closed, past tense, because once it's signed and we have the check in hand, it's actually closed. So just keep that in mind. Often when you have a funnel, people use the word qualify, close instead of the ing, but they actually represent a process of taking action. Okay. I want to share with you how this is sort of our image to help everybody understand what a funnel does and what it looks like. So on the left-hand side, these are the things that we would do during prospecting. We'd be targeting, we'd be building brand awareness, and we'd be developing interest. And you could actually put another thing here on the left-hand side that shows what your buyer would be doing at the same time. And and then next we would have qualify, and during that process, during that time, we would be making sure that there's a fit, that there's an interest, that there's a budget, and so these are things that, well, on the right hand side, these are the things that help us to understand how would you move from one stage to another. So if I'm prospecting, I've identified that there's a potential fit. And then once I do that, and possibly some interest, I can move that into qualify. And then I move it out of qualify once I say, okay, this could possibly become an order because we've qualified it, we've asked all those questions. And then I can move into verify, and I move it out of verify when a possible order is verified, and so on. So this helps us to understand what we're doing, what it's called, and how we move from one stage to the next. And we want to be really clear about this process, is that this is not about, if you have a complex sale and you're meeting and your buyers include 2 to say 15 people, these steps are happening with multiple buyers. And particularly when you get into this verify or cultivate, you're actually cultivating relationships and verifying the needs and handling objections for all of the people involved in the buying process.
So
Are there any
Liz,
questions on that? Yeah.
Gunders explained what he was implying about a gate. So a gate would
Hmm.
be a concept that before you can move from one stage to another, that a gate or condition has been met in order to move to the next stage.
Okay, and that's what I was wondering. So a gate, a GATE. So that's really what these sort of are. So you would determine your own, and in that other document, you could put another column. But yeah, it should be really clear that there are things that get checked off before your salespeople move things to the next stage, because you want to be sure that they're following the same process and using the same measures, so that when you look and you say something's in qualify, I really know what that means. If something's in close, I really know what that means, and that they have met the criteria before moving it on. So that makes sense to me. Okay, sorry about that. I needed a drink of water. So what does this look like when you actually put it to work? I'm going to show it to you in two different ways. So this is an Excel version of what you might see. And I'm probably going to come back to this later, but notice, so I have, well, somehow my part that said prospect disappeared. But so this is the company name. All of these are in prospect. Oops, go back, go back. Okay, all of these are in prospect. And here it says above, which is the Miller Heiman terminology from strategic selling for anything that's in qualify. And I don't know if you're noticing as you look at it, but what's in prospect is a lot more than what's in above. And then I have in, which is a little bit small here. And then I have best view, the things that I'm getting ready to close. So sorry, above would be qualify, in would be verify, and best view would be close. Those are the ones that I'm getting ready to close. And then I have the things that I've won. So this isn't a complete funnel, but you can see just sort of, you can imagine the shape of a funnel by looking at this.
Liz, what I want to point out to people here is something critically important, that if you don't have a next step with a deal, then you don't have a deal, that you're not
Right.
managing the deal. And I call that the basics, because ultimately you should always have an idea, what is the next step that I need to do, and track that and make sure that you do that. And that if you do that, if you follow up and follow through and you come to agreement on what needs to be done and you do it, typically deals move forward.
Yeah, and I want to take that one step further, actually, because as a sales leader or sales manager or coach, this is one of the things I coach around. If it says in here follow up, which this one says I have a call Friday as a follow up to the webinar, it doesn't just say the words follow up. And this one has a blank because I didn't put it in there. But I want to know specifically what is the next action, and I want an action that's involved with the buyer helping me move the sale forward. I don't want to just follow up. I don't want to just check in, although I have send an email and check in next week. But I have actually more information in here that you can't see because I wanted the boxes to be readable. But so I'm going to check in next week on something very specific. And if you looked at my funnel, you could see what that specific is. So with Leslie, I'm checking in with her next week to see if she's spoken with her boss yet to introduce me. So we want to make sure that as sales leaders, we are checking the next actions to make sure that they're actually moving the sale forward. The other thing I want to point out about this is this big set of blanks up here. Did you notice that this is completely blank? And did you want to yell at me for not finishing my funnel? But actually, there's a reason, because at this point, I'm still trying to figure out what we would sell them and what that would cost and when it would close, because I don't know yet. I haven't qualified it. And even during the qualifying process, whoops, it just jumped away on me again. Even during the qualifying process, I may not have those answers yet. But before I move it down to the next phase, and I don't know why those numbers aren't there, this information should be answered. So this one I know is a $20,000 sale. I don't know why it's not in there. But before it moves into verify, that would be one of the gates, is I need to know what is the product, what is the amount, and when should it close. Okay. Did you have anything else? It keeps getting away from me, you guys. I'm so sorry. John, did you have anything else that you wanted to share on that?
No, I think that this really gives people a good idea that if they wanted to do a sales funnel in a spreadsheet, that these are some of the typical things that you would be tracking, and how to apply your concept to that spreadsheet. Question I have for you is, you showed us originally these definitions of these stages with certain words. But in this
Yeah.
case, you're using other words. And I think that if you were to if you were to Google sales funnel or stages, you're probably going to get a million different definitions. They all sort of coalesce around the core idea of your main definition that you
Which
had,
is this
uh,
one.
which is that one. But basically, don't let it throw you off if people call some of these different stages different things. It's really what you're comfortable with. But the whole idea is, if you're going to close 10 deals this month, that you need to have 100 prospects probably in the first stage, and then it boils down to maybe 75 or 60, and it's sort of it's a numbers game. And what you call the stages is not critical in general, as long as there's agreement and understanding of what those stages are and what the gates that allow you to move it between the stages.
Right. And that you've distinguished between stages versus these other things versus activities or status. So for instance, often what people will have as a stage is submitted contract. That's an activity or a gate. It is not a stage. You're in the process of either verifying or closing when you give them the contract, depending upon your sales process. So that would be important. Yeah, and forgive me. So we use the old-fashioned Miller Heiman words that we were raised with on our own funnels, and we have a more generic terms for our clients. So, all right, I want to try to share with you what this would look like in Nimble. Hang on one second. Okay, Nimble went to sleep. Wake up, Nimble. All right, so this is my funnel. This is what it will look like once I put the information in. So let's go to the deals page for a second, and then let's come back to this. So these are the opportunities that you saw on that other funnel, only these are just, well, I think the other one was just mine too. So these are the funnels. These are the opportunities in my funnel, and I want to share looking at it in a different way. So you can look at it sort of in these sticky note version, or you can look at it as a list. Either way, I should be able to get a really good idea of the balance of my funnel, which is one of the most important things.
And in this
I
list
want to
view,
share with you.
Liz, what I like to show people is that they could also group it by different ways to break the group. So go ahead and select the group by,
Oh, I don't know about that. Okay,
and you can group it by stage.
there you go.
So that basically, and then you could expand that if you want. You could also group it by uh, you can go ahead so there's a variety of ways that you can sort of break and group those, and you could also group it by probability, and then the other thing that is good to know is you could always export this to a CSV if you want to manipulate the data in a spreadsheet.
Okay. So, and I want to just share with you why I have let's see, list. Oops, I want to do it by none, I guess. Okay, so I use these numbers in front because I want to see my funnel in a specific order. And so I made up a way to do that. John, you may have a better way. So I don't want them to be in alphabetical order. I want them to be prospect first, qualify second, verify third, and close last. So I actually put the number in front so I know that they'll show in the right order when I sort them on by stage. But John may be able to teach us a better way to do that.
Well, you could always go in the pipeline view and they'd be ordered that way.
Right, in the pipeline view they are. So that's why I have these silly numbers in front of them, because I want to see them that particular way. But again, if we look at this, we can see the balance of the funnel. John, I know that not everybody understands that you can have multiple funnels. So I actually use multiple funnels. So these are people who have responded to a something online and downloaded something. I actually have more that I have to put in. So I have a funnel just for my MQLs, and notice they only have 2 stages. So either they download and I haven't communicated with them, or I've communicated with them, they've shown some additional interest and I need to qualify them. These, once they get to the next, where I'm actually talking to them and they're qualified, I move them back over into my opportunities funnel. So you can work between these funnels and you can have multiple funnels.
In regards to the multiple funnels, I think that there's a lot of use cases for that. One of them is one you just explained. If you think about the typical lead that hits your website or that you're outreaching to, so you could either do inbound, where you're potentially sharing content to establish yourself as a trusted advisor, and people click on your content and eventually get to your website and they fill out a form, attend a webinar, whatever. That's inbound. And when an inbound lead comes in, they're not qualified, and you need to basically qualify it before you could ever put it in the pipeline. And so this is sort of pre-pipeline stuff.
Right.
And then once you have qualified it and you actually engage in the deal, then it would go into the regular pipeline.
And I can just do that by clicking on it and then changing where the funnel, which funnel it's in.
Right. And then there's a different type of pipeline. So at Nimble, I personally connect to editors, analysts, bloggers, influencers, third-party developers, investors, advisors, and prospects and customers. Now, that's a lot of different types of engagement, and not all of them revolve around dollars. And so I may be connecting with somebody in order to get them to talk about Nimble or write about Nimble, like Forbes or Fortune or Technology Pub or whatever. I may be connected with somebody to become an investor. I may be connecting with somebody to basically do webinars with us, or an influencer to start using Nimble and become an evangelist. So there's PR funnels, there's investor funnels, there's strategic partner funnels. Like for instance, Microsoft just signed a global agreement where they're globally reselling Nimble, and that was a biz dev funnel. And so I believe that it shouldn't be, CRM should not just be used for salespeople or just for prospects and customers, that the relationship manager should cross the boundaries of the company, and they each have different sort of stages and processes that they would use, and this pipeline is designed for that. Lastly, a pipeline could be used as a pre-sales, but it could also be used as a post-sales implementation as well. And so it could be used for service as well as sales.
Right, absolutely. And notice John and I have some of the same things. So we have a speaking funnel that's specifically for speaking opportunities. We have a partners funnel. We have partners that we give them leads, and then they keep us up to date on what's going on with those leads, and we then get a 20% of what they sell. We have nurture, and we also have this networking. So these are people that we want to continue to stay in touch with and decide whether or not we want to build a long-term relationship. So these are all great ways to use your funnel. Is there anything else you want me to show them here before we jump back to the presentation?
No, I think that was perfect. Thank you, Liz.
Okay, let me find PowerPoint again. Okay, so we talked about this a little bit already, so I'm going to jump through some of these quickly because we talked about them. But as you begin to use your funnel, you're going to start to identify patterns that happen in your business. And but again, you will only see these patterns if you all agree on how to use the funnel and you as a leader manage that process. So the kinds of patterns that you'll begin to see are the length of your sales cycle, what your close ratios are, so is it 10 to 1 or is it 30 to 1 or is it 100 to 1? What factors will influence velocity? So, whoops, I don't know how that just happened. Okay. John never let me be in control of the PowerPoint. I don't drive well. Okay, so I don't know why it keeps switching.
I'm not even going to comment on that.
So there are different things that can affect how fast something goes through the funnel. And as you're doing funnel reviews with your team, you're going to be able to see, oh, this went really slowly because you only communicated with one person. This one went really fast because you had relationships with all 6 people. So you're going to be able to see what influences velocity and what rate things fall out of the funnel. So are you losing things in qualify, which you should be, because you should be qualifying things out, and you should be doing that happily because we don't want to waste time on leads that won't close. But what we don't want is to get all the way to the bottom of the funnel thinking that we have all this stuff that's going to close and have it fall out there. So we really want to see what's happening in our funnel, and by looking at it every day, by working with our salespeople around it, we will begin to see these patterns and figure out solutions and manage around them. And again, remember in the beginning when we started, we've talked about this several times, the shape of your funnel. This is the basis of what I call the sales math. Every company has their own sales math, and using your funnel properly will help you understand what your sales math looks like. So when I say sales math, a typical expectation would be that for every 10 things that you put in prospect, only one is actually going to come out the bottom as a sale. Some of them you may lose them, they may be a closed loss, but typically a 10 to 1. That may not be true for your company, though. You need to learn what your ratio really is. I know my ratio for my company is not 10 to 1. It's more like a 3 to 1. But I have a new product that I'm launching, and that seems to be more like a 10 to 1. So things change, and you have to keep track of how this sales math works. So you're going to have to figure out, of the things that come in, how good are your prospects, how close are they to what your ideal customer profile is, and how many of them are going to fall out during the qualify process. So these are all things that we're going to be looking for to understand what the math is for our funnel. Let me show you the sales math a little bit more visually. So this would be typical. So if you had if you put 10 in prospect, then maybe you would qualify out 3 of them early on and say, oh, this isn't a good fit. They have no budget. They have no timeline. They're not really interested. Something else is going on right now. They need a parking lot, whatever. So these things are not going to, the 3 of them are going to go away. And then as I go through the process of really determining the fit, cultivating, verifying, more are going to fall out because I'm going to realize, you know what, I thought this was a good fit, but it's really not, or we don't have buy-in from the senior people and I don't seem to be able to get it, so it's not going to happen, or a competitor got in there and they're more likely going to get the lead, get the sale, so more are going to fall out. And then it's probably going to come down to 2 of them that I'm hopefully, if I have 2 in close, 2 will close if I'm trying to close 2 of them, but chances are one of them could either push back or fall out. So this is the sales math, or the ratios that you need to understand to be able to manage your company. So if I know that my sales cycle is 6 months long and I have 10 in the top of my funnel, I can expect 1 6 months from now. So if I need to have 20 6 months from now, then I better have 200 in prospect in order to achieve those goals. So understanding this math helps you know where you're putting the resources. Do you need more resources in marketing? Do you need more resources in sales? Is stuff getting stuck in the middle of the funnel and never getting moved? What if your cultivate has 30 in it and you only have 10 in prospect and nothing is moving? Well, then I need to figure out, why is everything stuck and what do I need to do about it? This will also tell you, if you understand this math and your team uses your funnel accurately, you will be able to say, in 6 months, I need to hire 3 people in order to implement what we're selling. If, on the other hand, you don't know your sales math, you don't know what's going to close, you may end up closing more stuff than you have people to fulfill, or you may end up with a lot more people waiting around to fulfill stuff that you're not going to sell. So this math is critical to running your business. And this is another way to look at it. I just had ratios before, and then someone looked at me and said, I never learned anything when my teacher was talking about ratios. So if this doesn't make sense to you, don't feel bad. But this is sort of how I think about it. If I have 10 in prospect, that would be to a ratio of 7. So from prospect to qualified, 10 in prospect and 7 in qualify, and then from 7 in qualify to 4 in verify. Just another way to look at the same math. So John, anything on that?
No, but it really gives me a great idea as an improvement to Nimble. I would love to see Nimble be able to track this math and to communicate it as an overall thing for the overall math for your company, and then to be able to apply it to individual salespeople's pipelines to show people that are not sort of in line with the norms, whether it's the ratios, because there's a lot of people that put things in the pipeline and they don't really move it forward. They're not really on top of their pipeline, and the ratios become out of whack. And also the stages and the time frames between the different stages, yes, where basically things are forgotten. And Liz, you've coached many of salespeople that put things in the pipeline kind of reluctantly, and they don't really manage it. They don't move them forward. They're not managing their pipeline. And you could tell by looking at it, but as a sales manager, it's hard to really closely look at everybody's pipeline. And ultimately, the sales manager shouldn't have to do that. The software should track it and coach the salesperson when they're off track, just like a physical therapy coach, and help them to get on track. And so these are all great ideas on how to improve Nimble. Now, one of the users out there, Gundars, I hope I didn't mispronounce your name, asked about, is there a report that does this today? And my answer is no, we don't have this today. But one of the things we did with Goldmine is we embedded Crystal reports, and then we wrote a bunch of standard reports that enabled our customers to have more depth and breadth of reporting. But in addition to that, they were able to modify those reports and create net new custom reports. And that's part of our Nimble 5.0 strategy, is to embed Power BI into Nimble to have a bigger depth and breadth of reporting, including reports on activities against deals and the results thereof, as well as tracking the stages and the math ratios of these deals. And Gunders was so kind to point out that isn't the Power BI integration a bit overdue? And he put a smiley face on there. Thanks, Gunders. And the answer is yes. We anticipated it to be out a few months ago, but there's news that I can't share yet that caused a bit of a delay in that integration. The news is going to be fantastic for our customers, but I can't share it yet. But it has something to do with Microsoft, so I'll just leave it at that.
So I just want to show you, moving that to what Nimble does tell you is on your homepage, on your Today page, you can take a look at your funnel, and you can look at it. You can look at any of your funnels. You can look at it as team. You can look at it as your own, and you can see the dollar values weighted, the dollar values not weighted, and you can see the number: 5 deals in prospect, 2 deals in verify. Those must be weighted numbers. Anyway, so this will give you, watching this will help you quite a bit. What I will tell you is 2 things that you need to know. If you don't put a percentage in here, it doesn't show. And also, because I don't put dollar values in prospect, the prospect amount is only $9,500, and it's only showing those 5 deals.
Liz, are you saying that if you don't put a percentage in a deal that it doesn't show up in the pipeline at all as a dollar amount?
I don't think it does. It doesn't
Okay,
under weighted. It might under total.
let's see total. Do you know? We'll check that because
Yeah.
because you shouldn't be forced to put a percentage in order to get the dollar amount to show up. Michaela, make a note of that, and let's check that with the success team and put an answer in the follow up for the people watching this.
Okay. So
And Liz, one of
definitely
the things people
in
wanted
the
to know
weighted,
was
if you put a
how
0.
how do you set up your today page?
How do I set it up and why does it look like this?
No, they just wanted to know like which widgets you have where.
Oh, you can just move them around. You can just literally drag and drop them.
Yeah.
And this is how I like to see it. So these are my signals down here on the left. This is deals, what's going on. So this has my 1 deals. This has my active deals. So I love that. And this is my actions. So this is a great page, you guys. This is how you should start every single day, right here. Everything you need to know and prioritize is right here. Okay, so I think I have a couple quick more things. Hang on, I can't. Okay. So what's the result? What's the result of doing what I just said, doing all of those things that I just shared with you? The result is you can take control of your company. And I think that's super powerful. I don't think people understand the real power of that funnel. It gives you so much information about how you need to apply resources to manage your company. I think people just think, oh, it's a list of opportunities, but it's not just a list of opportunities. When you use it accurately, everybody uses it the same way. You understand things like, why are things moving so slowly? Where do we need to put resources? What can we really expect to close? How do we have a funnel that we can really predict from? What I will tell you is that forecasting from most CRMs is abysmal. It isn't accurate, and they're using a set of statistics that may or may not be accurate depending upon how the salespeople put the information in. If you want to really be able to predict, you have to really look at your funnel and work with your salespeople to make it work. I just think it's an incredibly powerful tool, way beyond just managing sales and individual salespeople managing their priorities. So I want to really quickly, 4 mistakes that people make that I don't want you to make. One is using past tense. The only time you could ever use past tense is in won and lost. Everything else is active. And it really confuses your sales team when you use past tense. And I've seen this many times, it'll say qualified. Well, is it qualified or am I qualifying? So remember that ing is important. Mistake 2 is using activities as stages. It's not necessary to make each activity its own stage. Submitting a proposal is not a stage. It's part of another stage. And you ought to be able to track those activities, and Nimble allows you to do some of those things. Track those activities in your CRM to make sure they're happening in the right place. And the third is confusing stage and status. So I've seen people put their stage as preferred provider. That or preferred vendor, that's not a stage. I'm either verifying or I'm closing, and my status may be not preferred or preferred, but that's not a stage. So don't get those kinds of things confused. And the fourth is confusing. Sorry, let me go back to this. That I just gave you this one. Confusing competitive position with status. That's preferred vendor. Let's go back to here. What I meant by this one. Stage and status. So is it active? Is it dead? Is it moving forward? Is it moving slowly? Those are not, dead is not a stage, or it's closed, it's one lost. If it's active, it's in a stage. So just make sure that your stages and all of these other things don't get confused. They all belong inside the stage. And I don't know if I just confused anybody there, but if I did, ask your question and I'll clear it up. So couple of actions that you want to take right away. Define your sales process and set up Nimble to match it, or your whatever CRM you're using, or like I have, I use Nimble and I use a spreadsheet for various reasons. So whatever it is you're going to use, define your sales process first. Look at funnel reports at least weekly and look for trends, and then coach your team around your findings. So, oops, did it again. So when you're coaching your team, all of those things that we talked about, you want to coach your team at least once a month each individually on their funnel. What's the shape of your funnel? Are things moving through the funnel? What's stuck? What help do you need from me? What are your next actions? All of these things will help us to make sure that we understand what's going on with our funnel, and we can help our team prioritize their activities and be more successful. So that's all I have.
Okay. So Liz, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom about sales funnels. One of the things my big takeaway of it is that proposal isn't a stage, it's part of another stage, and then all your stage has to be action things, ing things. So tell us about your special offers.
So my special offer for you is anybody who would like to talk about sales process or their funnel. I have a 30-minute session. You can go online and it's completely free of charge, just time for me to answer specific questions for you and give you some direction, so that when you create your funnel and you put things into your CRM, you're going the right direction.
Perfect. And can you pass me control? I just want to share one parting closing thought with the.
I don't know how to do that. Michaela, can you do that?
Can you give me control? Great.
Thanks.
Okay. So first off, Liz, thank you so much. I learn each one of these webinars, and I love to help our customers learn and grow. One of the things I want to share with you all is my ideas of funnels in general, and specifically, this is a typical funnel that they teach at startup universities, where you need to get eyeballs, you need to activate these eyeballs, and then close them, and then get retention and referral. And I think that this model doesn't take into account sort of the new buyer journey. And so I'm going to leave you with some education. Google McKinsey customer journey, and I'll just go ahead and put this into the GoToWebinar control panel chat, and I'll make sure that Michaela shares this with you all in the email. But in it, it talks about the way we buy today, and ultimately, I think that it's radically changed. And I'm just going to leave you with how I bought my last TV set. So there was a trigger that caused me to begin a buyer journey, and that trigger was my TV died. And it was actually the second Sony product that died in my household in the past 6 months. So as I began to build my initial consideration set, number one, I didn't go to the websites of TV manufacturers, and I didn't go to stores. I went online and basically read from people that I trusted, people like me or thought leaders that have blogs that talk about these things. And I actually set out not to buy the Sony again. So I looked at Samsung, Fujitsu, and LG, and blah, blah, blah. And after doing all my research and going to the moment of purchase, I did go to a TV store because TVs, you got to go see them, right? You can't just trust other people's eyes. You got to go look at them. And in the process of looking at them and actually talking to the person in the store who I trusted because they've been there for 20 years and I bought multiple TVs from these people. So they're not just like just walking into a Best Buy. I ended up buying the Sony because it was the best product and the best value. But after I bought it, I still felt a little bit, I kept doing research. How many of you do that? And I'd love to see a show of hands. How many of you buy something but continue to research after you buy? And it was only after I'd owned it for a year or so that I entered the loyalty loop where I not only bought 2 more Sony TVs, and I'm actually going to buy 1 more probably on Black Friday coming up, but I tell people about it every day. And so this is sort of the new buyer journey. It's more of a pretzel. Your customers, I think, don't go through a funnel and then just disappear. And I think that the traditional funnel doesn't represent the need for retention and referral. And how do you stay top of mind with your customers in this sort of new buyer journey? And this is stuff that I teach and preach on a regular basis. Is you do it through influence, and that you need to stay top of mind with your customers. And I believe the best way to stay top of mind is teaching people how to fish, because rather than telling them how great your fishing poles are, you need to teach them how to fish. And so you need to daily educate, enchant, engage, embrace, and empower your customers. And you do that by giving your knowledge away. And how do you do that? Well, you go find knowledge. You find people that have high reach and relevance in and around the areas of promise, your products and services. There's things like BuzzSumo to do that. You share it out there in the stream, and then you listen and engage in order to drive yourself to become the top of mind trusted advisor for your prospects, your customers, and ideally also their influencers as well, which basically got us here to Liz. Liz, you are an influencer in the sales arena, and I value our friendship and our ability to add value to each other. So thank you again for coming and sharing your wisdom with us. We did get a ton of questions. We will share the answers to those questions that we answered online, and the ones that we didn't get to, we will get to them as well. We're going to share this PowerPoint. We're going to share a copy of the recording. If anybody wants to get a hold of me, there's a lot of ways to do that. The simplest ways, send me an email, jon@nimble.com. I'm easy to find. Thank you so much for spending time with us here today. If you don't use Nimble today, please go sign up. If you decide you do want to become a customer, use the code JON40, and you'll get 40% off your first 3 months. And with that, Liz, take us away. Say goodbye and close us out.
Yeah, thanks so much, everybody, for joining us and sticking with us. I hope that you now have all the tools you need to make your funnel and your CRM really effective. Have a great day, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon. And if you want to reach me, LinkedIn is a great way. Liz Heiman, I think I'm the only one, but I work at Alice Heiman LLC, so you should be able to find me. Have a great day, you guys.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Michaela. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.